The first glimpse I had of Sai Baba, and Swami turned around and there was a man in a wheelchair. And Swami looked at the man in the wheelchair. He opened his hand and I heard a loud noise. And the man was covered in white powder.
Instantly.
Instantly. It was like, whew. I thought, what happened with the man in the wheelchair? He goes like, and he gets up and walked.
With all this.
I wanted that Vibhuti gets blessed for my mother. And he was already past me, and I think to myself, forcefully, Baba. Swami, this is for my mother. He turns around, goes like this here, and he gave me 110 volts.
He electrified you.
Oh, through my whole arm. I was like, whoa! And I somersaulted backwards. And then I jumped over the fence.
Why did you do that?
I have no idea why I jumped over the fence. Before you know it, I stand in front of Swami.
Oh, the many ways people react after first encountering Sri Satya Sai Baba of India. Win Platzer of Idlewild, California, a spiritual aspirant for 50 years, certainly has his share of amazing Baba stories to share with all of us. Starting in 1973. Welcome to Souljourns. This interview was recorded in Pasadena, California in May of 2018.
And however, one day, probably, I think Aprilish, we approached Whitefield via a bus from a bus station in Bangalore. So at about 6 o'clock, we entered through the gate, all dust covered.
You're off to see a man by the name of Sai Baba.
That's right.
Yes.
And I had no idea who he might be. And again, I sat on the wrong side. There was a distinction between man and woman sides.
You were the only man in the woman's side.
I was the only man in the woman's. But it looks like nobody really cared. The first glimpse I had of Sai Baba, he comes walking counterclockwise around that big circle. There was a huge tree in the middle, I would say a diameter of maybe 50 feet of a walk. And a helper of Swami's walked suddenly next to him and whispered something in his ears. And I thought, wow, that's odd. And Swami turned around and there was a man in a wheelchair. And we'll never ever forget that. And he was pleading with Swami to heal the man in the wheelchair. And Swami looked at the man in the wheelchair. He was maybe 15 feet away from him. And he opened his hand and I heard a loud noise, a real loud noise, like an atmospheric condition. Mm-hmm. And the man was covered in white powder.
Instantly.
It was like, whew.
You probably didn't know what happened to him.
And then the most striking thing was, this man in the orange robes, that short man with the afro and the orange robe, he gave him only maybe a half of a second, a split second of attention, and continued walking. While the man in the wheelchair, I watched the man in the wheelchair. That was my business. I thought, what happened with the man in the wheelchair? He goes like, and he gets up and walked.
With all this Vibhuti over him.
Yeah. I didn't know what it was. Of course, I thought white dust, some chalk or something.
When you say a whole lot of it, you mean like
his entire body was covered.
It just came from nowhere.
It obviously came from his hand because he lifted his hand and then that noise started. But Swami turned around and continued walking, did not see what happened, that he got up and walked. And that impressed me most. Because any of us would have said, well, are you healed now? Are you okay?
Do you believe me that I can do this?
Nothing. He just nonchalantly just continued walking.
So
didn't pay attention to nothing.
This is 1974.
Yeah.
You're a young man touring the world, traveling through India.
That's
You meet
right.
somebody on the beach who says, if you want to learn how to do yoga, go to see Sai Baba.
Exactly.
And that was the first thing you saw happen
Right,
walking
that
through
was
the
the
gate.
very first
Yeah. What
moment.
kind of an impact did it have on you?
A ton of impact. You know, a strong impact. Because I hung around him for a half year. And extended my visa, I almost ended up in jail.
You stayed there half a year.
Oh, yeah.
Because of what you saw.
Yeah.
How is
And
it?
then, of course, I paid for drinking the water from the river.
Did
And
you
almost
have, like,
died.
amoebic dysentery or
yeah,
something
I went
like
down
that?
to 110 pounds, and my girlfriend went down to 80.
Oh my goodness.
The dogs were already following us in the trenches. Yeah, they would eat you.
Well, how has that experience in those 6 months and the illness combined to transform your life?
I got very strong directions. I just finished university and did not really know what to do with my life. I was basically an idiotic, arrogant academician or something.
You're a young man.
I had a possibility of teaching. I was teaching. So, you know, to go into the whole
Yeah.
professorship bullshit. And so, yeah. So I asked him also for guide me a little bit. First of all, heal me, which he did. And then guide me a little bit in my profession. And one time, we lived in a little pump house in Kadagodi. That's the village next to the ashram.
That's where we were. I mean, there's a nice little hotel there now, the Sai Renaissance Hotel. in
Well, we
Kathmandu.
lived in a pump house. And the thing was about 4
No
feet
running hot water.
No, 4 feet wide and about maybe 12 feet long. So we couldn't even sleep next to each other. We slept, you know, in series. So I had one really wonderful experience, and it's close to my heart. My mother wrote me a letter that she was not feeling well. And I was for months and days having purchased a little package of Vibhuti from the beggars outside the ashram and wanted that Baba blesses it. He goes to the guy, as he is prone to do, he's going to the guy next to me. I don't exist there. Man,
He ignores you.
What is that? Am I such a stinker or whatever? And over, day in, day out. One day, after I got that letter, I wanted that Vibhuti gets blessed for my mother. And he was already past me, going back into
But
the...
he turned around.
Yeah. I have the Vibhuti in my hand, and I said, and I think to myself, forcefully, Swami, this is for my mother, but not loud. And he is 15 feet away, already past me. He turns around, goes like this here, and he gave me 110 volts, or 110,000 volts. I was,
He electrified you.
through my whole arm. The whole arm was like, whoa! And I somersaulted backwards, stood up there, and then I jumped over the fence.
Why did you do
I
that?
have no idea why I jumped over the fence. Before you know it, I stand in front of Swami. Swami is like 12 feet away from me in the ashram. He already exited the ashram. He went really quick, boop, disappeared. He is in his little garden. And then, you know, I refused to wear a badge because we had summer shower things. And they always said, you have to have a badge. And it says, if that's a real spiritual place, forget about the badge. And so I was one of the few people who had no badge, but they tolerated me anyway. So Swami looks at me sternly, kind of like, because I am in his ashram. He looks sternly at me, like, what are you doing here, kind of like. And I froze. I couldn't move. Nowhere. I could not to jump over the fence back, and I just stood there. And then I thought to myself in German, Swami, are you sour now that I don't wear a badge? And he goes like, he starts grinning like crazy. And my heart just went like, whoa. So, and then I went back over the fence, and then a whole bunch of Indians came. Yeah, and the Vibhuti was blessed because he touched it. And then, and then I lost the whole Vibhuti because there were like 15 Indians around me, and everybody wanted some blessed Vibhuti, and I was stuck with nothing.
Well, here you are
which
now.
Is okay.
Fast forward from 1974 to 2018, Pasadena, California.
Yeah.
Receiving the blessings and darshan of Amma Shri Karunamai.
That's right.
Explain that to people who may be confused about if you're born a Christian, you stay a Christian. If you follow Baba, you follow Baba only. What is it that draws you to these avatars whose love is manifest?
That's right.
And is there some other reason why you continue to do this, to follow these teachers?
Well, with Swami, I have no conflict there because I talked to Amma about it, and Amma says, I am Sai mother. So, family.
Yeah. And how long have you been following Amma?
Since 96.
96?
Yeah, when she first came to America, I did see her.
So that's a long time. And what is it about her, if you were asked by a neighbor or somebody down the road why you go to see her, how would you answer that question?
I would say that in order to understand true universal and unconditional love, which is desired by actually everybody, it's good to be in the presence of somebody who demonstrates it.
And do you find a little of her love and a little of Sai Baba's love rubbing off on Win?
Absolutely, absolutely. I cry in her presence because it's like the love of her is just amazing.
You began by telling me you had one story, you had 3 blockbuster stories, and I'm really, really glad that you spent some time sharing it with us.
Okay.
I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also when Ramana Maharshi, that's what I heard, when Ramana Maharshi passed on, Swami said in the morning, and that was not a time where they had heavy duty. And
start from the beginning. When Ramana Maharshi
passed on, Swami said early in the morning, a big soul has left